In this video, I'm going to talk a bit about the three most important principles in chess. Now, if you want to become a strong player, it's important that you know these principles and that you understand them well, because they serve as a guide to help you find good moves. I'm sure that you know the feeling that you sometimes get into a position and you just don't know what to do. Well, in that case, you can often just think about the principles, and the principles will help you to find good ideas. The first principle is called the principle of development. And the principle of development says that at the start of the game, your pieces don't do much. So you need to increase their firepower by developing them to the best squares. So what you'll do is you'll think about the piece and then you'll try to think where's the best square for that piece. Of course, it will depend on the situation on the board. For example, in this situation, maybe you'll find that the best square for the knight is to put it on f3. And for this knight, it will be on c3. Maybe for this bishop, you'll want to put it on c4, which of course means you'll first have to push the pawn in order for the bishop to develop. And depending on the position, maybe you want to put this bishop there, or maybe even want to put it there, which means you'll have to push the pawn first so that the bishop can develop there. That's the first principle, the principle of development. You want to increase the firepower of your pieces by finding the best squares for them. The second principle is the principle of center control. I'm sure you know that the four squares in the middle of the board is called the center. And why is it so important that you should control the central squares? Well, the thing is, most of the action either takes place in the center or through the center. Let me show you what I mean. If at any time the white knight wants to attack white's territory, he'll have to take a path through the center. If this bishop, for example, wants to attack the white king side, he'll have to come through the center. If this knight wants to attack black's territory, he'll have to come through the center. The point I'm trying to make is most of the action takes place either in the center or through the center. And that's why it's to your advantage if you control the central squares. If you control the center, you also control most of the action. Okay, the third principle we're going to look at now is the principle of king safety. Your king is the most vulnerable of all your pieces, and that's why you need to try to keep him safe. In other lessons, I'll discuss a bit more details about keeping your king safe and why it's so important to keep your king safe. So these are the three principles. Remember them and think about them while you play. Just to conclude, I want to mention that I sometimes see chess players and they don't actually apply the principles in their games. And then afterwards, if I ask them, do you know the principles? Then they say yes, development, center control, and king safety. Yet, I find it strange that they don't apply the principles. So it doesn't help that you just know the principles. Think about them and try to apply them as much as possible. That's why they are called principles. They are there to help you find good moves, and you should use it to your advantage. Okay, I'll see you again in the next lesson. Cheers.